the word audible is a proper word to use, but now with the service, you just think of audible. Okay, so we should be live now. Are you checking the old sound there?
Nothing yet. Says live in 60 seconds on the... Now it's going live.
Okay.
Hey, there we go.
That's interesting. So I wonder if it's holding to the countdown now more, potentially. Because that was like a 30-something second delay from when I pushed go live to when it went live.
But now the delay's back down to a couple seconds for us. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. I wonder if I don't know. I feel like they're still tweaking shit as they're
Tweaking?
fixing everything up for this new streaming thing. Okay. I don't know if we got anyone in the chat yet. Now, I'm showing one, but we've established that the count on my side thing is not always accurate.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a long time since we've done a book club.
I forgot how.
I pulled up the thing to check the number when I was working on the slides. I was like, man, how far do I have to scroll back? Because remember, we did a Unfound Door in place of what would have been our last book club of 2019. So it has been it's been 4 months.
Jeez, really?
September 30th. Or wait, 4 months ago. Yep, September 30th. And then we did a couple round tables, and then the Institute. Then we had our call-in show as well, which kind of, it's probably been the longest we've gone since the year of the movie. So,
yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and, I suppose, hit the intro and then get started. I've lost my window here. There we go.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed.
Go then. There are other worlds than these.
Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are quartet, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for a book club. And as we were just discussing right before we went live with the actual podcast portion, just in the live chat, we were talking about how it has been 4 months since our last proper book club. We replaced one book club with the Unfound Door for the Institute. Then we had our live show, which I don't know that was necessarily taking place of a book club. But yeah, so it's been a minute since we've been here in book 2, the Dark Tower series, so it's good to be back in it, and it's the first one on the new computer too. I know I mentioned getting a new computer some while back, but I realized that I can't remember what I was looking. Oh, it was all like my Kindle app and everything that I use on the computer. I was like, "Where's all my stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh, that we haven't done one since this computer." So makes total sense that I don't have anything. But yeah, so we're glad to be back into it. We're sitting right at about, according to the Kindle, I guess I can look at it here. 78%, with where we're at currently of book 2. So we will go ahead and hit the intro stuff real quick and then get started. First of all, we want to warn you guys about spoilers. With this one, I guess the only spoilers we'd warn you about is if you're somehow behind us. Like if you're in the middle of book 1, this would not be a proper episode to listen to, but we will only talk about what we're covering in this episode or before. So if you are in the middle of book 5, you're certainly safe to listen to this episode. And this is generally where we would guide people, if they haven't finished the entire series, to listen to as our book club episodes. So if that is where you are aiming to be, you're in the right place. Next up, if you want to help the show out, you could do that in a number of ways. subscribing and rating and reviewing on things like Apple Podcasting. That's the big one. Stitcher or any podcast service, really, we would appreciate. We're also now on Spotify, and you can find us on any of those places and pretty much wherever podcasts are found. Then if you want to find the show notes, which we don't have show notes for this episode, our book clubs generally don't have show notes. But if you want to find our show notes for previous episodes, or if you're a new listener and you want to see like our questions we ask for new listeners, you can find that at darktowerpalaver.com. And there's a little thing there for new listeners. You can answer all of those questions or pick and choose what you want to answer. But those are just kind of ones that we kind of developed over our first year or so of the podcast, of things that we ask new listeners to try to get a gauge on people and where they, what their relationship is with the series and stuff. And if you are new, you are also now part of our extended quartet. And as part of that, we want you to be part of the discussion in various ways. And Peter can let you know how you can do that.
Best way to reach us is through email. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. We do take emails for book club subjects. So if it's in regards to a section that we're about to read or something that we just read, don't hesitate to send us an email about that. We're also on social media. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then at darktowerpod, that's at darktowerpod for the Twitter. And then Instagram is darktowerpalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then we stream all of our shows. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. The book clubs, however, don't stay up because of copyright issues with the sound clips, but you can always join us live. Click like and subscribe, ring the bell to get notifications when we go live.
Yeah, indeed. That is all the ways to contact us. Also, if you are going to email about a book club, if you wanted to email about a detail that maybe we've already passed, like say you had something in book 1 that we happened to not cover. I thought about that while I was prepping this show personally on my side, is there's just times that we skip certain stuff and we just kind of focus in on what we find interesting. If there is something that we didn't necessarily find interesting, but you do and you're curious to talk about it more, feel free to email and say like, hey, in book 1 or the first part of book 2, you guys didn't talk about this, and then we can address that. That'll most likely be on a round table though. So that's the other thing too, is also with these ones, we don't talk ahead, so we can't really talk about things like how they connect to the larger series, at least until we get to that portion of the future series. So if you wanted to talk about like how some moment in book 1 pans out into book 7, you can email us and we'll probably discuss that on a roundtable. But don't hesitate to email us on stuff that we've already passed as well.
Exactly.
Okay, so we are jumping in, and we are currently at The Pusher, which I don't know that's like a book, I guess, like kind of the Stephen King realm of, kind of having separate books within books. It's not necessarily like a chapter or anything. It's just a full-on heading that says The Pusher. I think you got an animation or a picture there of some kind, don't you?
It's a tarot card with a skull on it.
Okay, yeah, mine's just a blank page. It says The Pusher. So that's where we're at now. And then it starts with chapter 1 again. So that's why we always just call them like sub books almost. Some of them are more obvious with King, like The Stand, like actually says
book
like
2,
book 1, book 2, whatever. A lot of his stuff doesn't though. It just says something like this, where it just says The Pusher, and then chapter 1 starts back at chapter 1 again. So that's where we're at. I guess we can even just talk about the name there, the Pusher. I guess my thoughts as I went into this, seeing Pusher for the first time, I remember thinking it probably had something to do with Eddie, because I saw it more as a realm of like Pusher when it comes to drugs.
There's a drug term. Used in the drug trade business.
Yeah, like I just thought maybe it would be something associated with that. So that was my first knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
What did you do you remember what you were
I don't remember having a reaction to it.
Okay. But
I was more focused on the Walter's prediction for the third door. Death but not for you, gunslinger.
Okay.
That's where I was more centered on. Is like The Pusher, great, okay, so that has nothing to do with death, but that's the question, is what is death and who is it for if it's not for Roland?
Yeah,
So.
indeed. Yeah, I guess for some reason I wasn't full on thinking about it, especially because it didn't say death. Like that, I was expecting it to say death on the door, and then when it didn't, it said the pusher. I was a little bit surprised, and then I just kind of thought pusher, which made me obviously think something like, is this going to be Balazar related? Like that. I guess that just was my first knee jerk reactions as I was reading, saw the word pusher. Mm-hmm. So that was just, I just wanted to talk about that because that's the first, because this one doesn't jive with what we've seen so far. Like the other one's kind of lined up with what the tarot card said.
The tarot card said the prisoner and Lady of Shadows, and that's what was on the door.
Yeah, indeed. So moving over to chapter 1, the first chapter is titled Bitter Medicine. So what do you got in this section, sir?
Basically just the first part here, the gunslinger talks about when he entered Eddie. Eddie got a wave of nausea. Data, there was no feeling. He just instantly had to come forward. And then it says, Jack Mort didn't feel a thing. He was too intent on the boy. He had been watching the boy for the last 2 weeks. Today he was going to push him. And then we're already in subchapter 2.
Yeah, King does these short subchapters, certainly.
I think we found that the shortest one is one sentence?
2 words, I think. There was one that it was no misfire, so 3 words.
Or something like that, yeah. It was really short.
Was that the Jack Andolini stuff?
I think so.
Yeah, there was one that was like only a couple words. So yeah, he can keep them fairly short. So yeah,
and then this next part here I had as well is even with the back to the eyes from which the gunslinger now looked, Roland recognized the boy. It was the boy he had met at the way station in the desert. The boy he had rescued from the oracle in the mountains, the boy whose life he had sacrificed when the choice between saving him or finally catching up with the men in black finally came, the boy who had said, "Go then, there are other worlds than these," before plunging into the abyss. And sure enough, the boy had been right. The boy was Jake. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to highlight this is because in my version of the novel, I don't have just the regular paperback. I got I don't know what you call this, like the bigger paperback.
Yeah,
it's not as big as
it's probably the first paperback that came out, and then like the trade paperbacks are the ones where they're more universal sizing, I think,
like the little smaller ones.
Where they're like like when you go look at the King section at most bookstores, 90% of what you're going to see on there is going to be the trade paperbacks. Right. They're all the same size, height, and whatever. But yeah, yours I think that might be the first wave of paperbacks.
Very well could be,
because they're bigger. They're closer to the size of the hardcovers, but they are in paperback. So that's kind of my guess and thought process is that's probably like the first wave of paperbacks.
When did Drawing of the Three come out?
Oh, you put me on the spot. 87? I don't have my list up currently.
That's the copyright for this book, so you very well could be right. But the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because that paragraph literally ends at the end of a page. So it's just like, and then I just remember, oh my God, that's Jake? And then having to it was like the slowest page turn I remember, just like, what the fuck? And then I just kept going.
Yeah. And see, there was even part of me when it was, I was definitely thrown off a little bit, even in subchapter 1, when it said he'd been watching the boy, because I'm just like, I don't know, not that I thought it was Jake at that moment, but it's just like, wait, what's going on now? Like, he's entering someone that's watching a boy, and says he's going to push him. So now, obviously, my whole thought process of pushing being a drug term was out the window pretty much in the first couple sentences there. But then you get over to subchapter 2 here in Jake, and that's, like, again, there's just like these certain moments for me with this book where like the second that Roland looks through the door and he's looking out of the window of an airplane, like, to me, like, that's the moment I could easily pinpoint and say that's the moment I knew I was just going to be a fanatic of this series. Mm-hmm. Like, that was just because book 1, like, I had a harder time with in some ways. Like, I think some of the poetic styling stuff, I love it now, but at the time I had a harder time with it. And like, if the whole series had kept dragging on in that style, I don't know that I would have been as into it.
Yeah.
But there was a different normal Stephen King vibe with like the rest of the books, and book 2 being the one that I discovered it. And that moment of just absolute weirdness of like, okay, everything I've seen so far, even in book 1, was fucking weird. Like, there's like, it's like contradictory stuff. It's like, this is post-apocalyptic or whatever, but you also still have King Arthur, you still have the Beatles. There's all this weird shit. Now suddenly there's a doorway that he's looking into an airplane. I think this was another one for me, like, kind of like, not that I wasn't already in hook, line, and sinker, but it was still one of those things where it's like, wait a minute, the kid that you killed
Is back.
in the last book is now back,
Yeah.
and we're talking about pushing him, and I'm remembering the story of how he got into Roland's world. Like, it just, this is like quintessential badass sci-fi stuff in my mind, because now you're talking about it's just weird, like, because all in my head it all started like coming together where I'm like, dude, this is like if this is when he gets pushed in front of the car, this is what's going to cause him to go into Midworld. Like, now Roland's going to, like, it just it was just
it was a roller coaster
just-
of emotions
just
then at that point.
yeah, and it's pure giddiness for me because
Yeah.
it's just, again, like, I love it because now you're not even just talking about also like crossing planes of existence of like Roland's world to our world, which, you know, has been fun as hell up to this point in this book. But now you're talking about time travel kind of thing, you know, like I didn't necessarily interpret it as in terms of like a multiverse or anything. I more interpreted it as like is this door folding him back in time to see like
Yeah.
the origin story basically of the kid. You know, he's heard it, but now is he going to see it? And like, yeah, it was just pure giddiness of just like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Like,
So you probably didn't pause right here at this part where it's like, it's Jake. You probably don't remember like pausing. You were like, oh my God, and just kept going.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of this is just flowing through my head as I was like,
Yeah.
kind of speeding forward to read. But yeah, I remember this being a fairly big moment. Like, and even going into this book club, you know, for the whole book itself, you know, in my mind, there's a couple moments, and like I knew about the looking through the door for the through the plane, and I remember the first time that Jake shows up in this book was like, those are the moments in my head where it's like, you know, with each of the books, as we said at the book club series, like there's certain things in my head where I'm like, I can't wait to talk about this and this and this. And like, this is one of them. So, yeah,
You know, mine for book 2 is the Lobstrosities attack right at the very beginning.
of course. I
Like
mean,
how bad that, like, I was not ready for that. I just remember being so angry at you. You gave me no warning. You're like, yeah, pick up book 2. It's pretty good. Like, stone cold gave me that no warning whatsoever that this guy was about to lose 2 fingers, a toe, and be poisoned, and
yeah,
he's probably gonna die and everything like that. I remember that's the part that got me hooked in. It's like, okay, I gotta see what happens to this guy.
yeah,
And that was it. And then as we progress into the book, he starts talking to Eddie about the tower. We finally start getting a little bit more about the tower, because we also have to remember, I'm going through right now and listening on Audible. I started another journey for the Dark Tower,
okay,
so I'm partway through Gunslinger right now. Book 1. Jake and Roland are just past the Oracle bit. They're climbing the mountain. So they haven't gone into the mountain, but they're climbing the mountain. So I'm rehashing stuff that has been a little bit since we've gone over in the book club. It's a little bit different now. This is my first read through after finishing book 1 book clubs.
okay.
So there's a little bit more there. Some of the stuff that we've talked about is coming
Yeah.
up to me and everything like that, as well as like,
like more context.
well, the biggest thing is that if you remember the book clubs for book 1, he went back and that's the only book he went back and did changes to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went back and he did changes to book 1. Like the most obvious one is there's talks of a Taheen, where he calls out to a Ravenhead Taheen, and then there's a whole part where he's actually in Tull and describes like a dream where he sees Susan Delgado die.
Yeah.
And we're just like, wait, what is this? What is this? You know? And so for me, I remember reading the book and listening to the Audible now after hearing like the differences. They're neon signs now. They're flashing out at me and everything like that.
Because I think that's the strange thing too, is you're dealing with the actual book. Your book is the original version,
right.
so I don't. Because
I didn't say that. You're right.
I would say most readers may not have that experience. You know, if they're reading and or listening on Audible, they're certainly getting the new version.
Yeah, right.
But I would say that a majority of people out there most likely have the revised version in their possession. So yeah, that's a little bit unique for you.
Yeah, it definitely is playing a part here. But when we get into book 2, that's where it's like some of the stuff is catching up with me. Reading this to get ready for this episode and everything like that, I'm like, oh geez, and so it's really interesting seeing like I just got past the part where he puts Jake to sleep at the way station, what you were just talking about, and hears about how he got pushed.
Yeah.
I never, honestly, now looking back at that, you said that, I didn't even think about that this time reading through. Like, it was just still just like, oh my God, it's Jake.
Yeah.
That seriously is like what I remember. You know me, I'm a very dramatic person. Picture like 18-year-old Peter laying in bed reading this book, and it was Jake. I seriously put the book down and like looked around my room for someone to see my shock. Like, oh,
Too bad reaction videos didn't
I know, right?
exist back in those days, right?
just have a video.
Although, does
have a
anyone-
video of me reading.
Although, does anyone have reaction videos of reading? Yeah, that'd be a strange one.
That would be a weird one. Like, I maybe if they were like reading it out loud, like
Yeah.
they read the book out loud to the audience, and
Yeah.
you get their reaction with it.
I mean,
That'd
if you edited the video down and like, oh, the moment they got to the
Yeah.
red wedding or the moment they got to whatever,
Yeah.
you know, like you then just have the video of just that portion might be
Yeah.
fun. But like, it's if the person's especially, you know, emotional or dramatic.
When you get to this chapter, stop, and then I'm going to record you. It's like, I sense a plot to destroy me.
Yeah, so that's yeah, for me I remember that being this being a pretty big moment. I can't necessarily say that it like had a great importance on my fandom, because I think at this point my fandom was already pretty much locked in, and I was pretty into this story. Like I was pretty pulled in and just holding on basically. But I remember this being a moment where it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, yeah, you've given me post-apocalyptic, which is shit I love. You've given me a little bit of horror, which I love. You've given me, you know, different existences by like letting it fold in on our world. And then on top of that, now you're going to add, basically, in my head I thought time travel was probably my thought process of like, not necessarily DeLorean, but, you know, maybe like, yeah, that he's now seeing something that has already happened from his perspective. Like this happened before, not only, so this is like him seeing Jake's first death after having seen him die a second time. So that, yeah, it was just like, just great. I remember this being just next level of like, I can't wait to. And then I do remember also reflecting a little bit on how close to the end I was and how annoying that is, because I always hate when there's like a big thing but then it doesn't, that happens so close to the end that you know that like I'm not going to get enough of the results of this, you know what I mean?
Have you ever done that with a TV show?
No, I actually make a point to like, I mean, especially nowadays because it's all streaming and stuff. I make it a point to never touch my thing to like to see the
How much
bar.
time's left?
Yeah, because like my temptation is to do that, but I have to stop myself. You know, because like I don't watch TV normally. Because in the old days, normally if you did it normally, then you just looked at your watch and went, oh shit, it's fucking. You know,
It's 5:55.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes to the hour. Like this fucking show's about to end.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's happened to me a couple times watching The Outsider this year. Has been like I want so hard to fucking press like the button on my thing to like
How far are we going?
to pause it to see how far I am from the end or whatever. And I always stop myself because I just don't want. I don't know. I don't want to know. You know, like, and with books, like if I could handle it with books, like if I could have back in the day, I would have loved to have just read it in a way that I didn't know that I was coming to the end of the book. Like that would have been nice for me, but you know, obviously that's not possible. Even fucking with the Kindle, it tells you at the bottom your percentage for your pages. So, you know, yeah, but I'm 100% like, I don't want to know. And I do remember realizing that it's like, okay, shit, you're going to introduce Jake back into this whole thing. Well, even if it's just temporary, maybe I'm just going to go through and see his demise. But now, I mean, not that we didn't see it fairly well the first time, but we're just going to go see it again, maybe from a different perspective. And, you know, I look at the pages left in my hand as I was holding the book, and I'm just like, motherfucker. So yeah, that's always a fun thing to have that realization.
We had that happen. I think it was Game of Thrones one time, where because we always watch HBO Now, HBO Go, one of the streaming ones instead of on actual like HBO.
Yeah,
because we don't have cable. And there was one time where it was a pretty dramatic episode. I can't remember which one it was. It was earlier seasons, not one of the later seasons. And I remember being like, I can't do it. I got to go to the bathroom. Like I should have gone before. I didn't. I got to go to the bathroom. And we paused it. It seriously had 2 minutes left. And we know how long the credits were going out. We're like, no.
I don't know if there's issues with the internet right now or. Okay, this is still showing red. The YouTube side showing green, so maybe we're back on.
I'm still spinning. We'll give it a second.
Hit refresh here.
Looks like we lost everyone in the chat too, is what it says.
Okay, now I'm showing green. It is fluctuating between green and yellow though on the software. Looks like it's spinning, but
Yeah, Agamorphy says spinning on my
But we
end,
can hear
but
us.
I hear
So-
you guys.
yeah, so maybe it's more of a video thing. So we'll just go ahead and
Okay.
keep going. If it drops, I guess we'll try to keep an eye on it. But yeah, it must be a busy day on the internet or something in this area because we usually don't have issues like this too often. But yeah, we are. It's fluctuating a little bit between green and yellow, but we'll go ahead and move on. Yeah, so that is definitely a big moment. Then going on a little bit here, it explains Jake what he's carrying and stuff. And then my next note was a little bit. The next paragraph says traffic flooded the street. The boy was waiting to cross a street in the same city from which he had taken the prisoner and the lady. He realized, but for the moment, none of that mattered. Nothing mattered but what was going to happen or not happen in the next few seconds. So you know, I like that Roland is able to recognize that it's the same city. I do appreciate that. Although it's funny because Jake explained aspects of the city to Roland.
Skyscrapers.
Yeah, and
Dolls that sell the clothes.
yeah, exactly. So because he was hazy on it, he was like kind of whatever. But yeah, so it's kind of funny that Jake explained some of this stuff to him, and then he actually saw it through. Mostly Eddie, because Eddie he actually traveled through the city with Roland, so he would have seen it a little bit more from his perspective. So is that. Plus, he's been in their head, so you know that might also give him some flashes of their memories.
Yeah.
So, then a little bit further down here, it says, because it's talking about how you know Jake didn't come through a door; he came in a more crude fashion. It says he had been murdered. More specifically, he'd been pushed into the street, run over by a car while on his way to school. His lunch sack in one hand, his books in the other. Pushed by the man in black. He's going to do it. He's going to do it right now. That's going to be my punishment for murdering him in my world. To see him murdered in this one before I can stop it. So that's I love that moment of realization because like just kind of I don't know, just that realization because like there's like a self-condemnation in that, you know, like it's not just like oh shit I'm gonna see this, but like Roland is kind of reflecting on his sins that he's done against this boy, and almost reflecting on and perceiving this as some sort of like punishment from the gods or whatever.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting, and maybe an interesting tell of Roland and the kind of person that he is, that he does have a self-awareness. Because, you know, I don't know, there's some aspect of Roland we've talked about before. He's plotting, he's, you know, whatever. Maybe he's not as quick as some of his friends or whatever. And, you know, so to have that realization of like, I don't know, more larger things like that of like morality and like, you know, this is going to be my punishment. Like that just shows a self-awareness of like, he is self-aware of the shit he does is bad. And I find that a telling of his character for sure.
Yeah, no, and then the next paragraph right after what you were just talking about says, but the rejection of brutish destiny had been the gunslinger's work all his life. It had been his call, if you pleased. And so he came forward without even thinking, acting with reflexes so deep that they had nearly become instincts. And as he did, a thought both horrible and ironic flashed into his mind. What if the body he had entered was itself that of the man in black? What if he rushed forward to save the boy? He saw his own hands reach out and push. What if this sense of control was only an illusion, and Walter's final gleeful joke that Roland himself should murder the boy? So it's just like, this goes from holy shit, it's Jake, to holy shit, that's the man in black that killed him.
Yeah.
Holy shit, am I in the man in black? Holy shit, I just came forward. Am I going to be the one to kill Jake?
Yeah.
Like that seriously was like such a progression there to throw at someone right at the beginning of a chapter like that.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to tumble through as you're reading, because it's just like first for him to be like reflecting on his condemnation, and then to like realize that like jump out of instinct basically, which is something we've seen with Roland. He isn't necessarily slow to react. We even saw him in sickness coming out of a dead sleep pretty much to readiness faster than almost the brain could process. So he's definitely capable. But then to come to that moment of like realization of like, oh shit, not only do I have to watch this, but what if I end up being responsible for
what if
this?
I'm the one that does it?
And like like for me, there's like a certain self-awareness of like, this is Stephen King, and that's just the kind of thing that Stephen King would do. So like the horror that like Roland is like living in his mind of like as he's going through this split second, like for me, I'm living it with him because I'm like, this is Stephen King, and that's exactly the kind of shit Stephen King would do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was one brutal motherfucker when it comes to being an author. Nothing is off the table when it comes to Cy King, and what he might do to a character. There's some pretty horrific things we could all think of that, that we've seen. Okay, so then this moves us into subchapter 3. And then now we're this is interesting because now we're jumping. We've done this before in this book where we're jumping basically back in time a tiny bit, and now we're going to look at what we just saw from another perspective. And it starts off here by telling us, for a single moment, Jack Mort lost the thin, strong arrow of his concentration. So basically we're jumping into his mind now. So now we're going to see what we just saw from Roland's side, from Jack Mort's side. And what my first big highlight here is the second paragraph. It says, when the gunslinger came forward, Jack thought some sort of bug had landed on the back of his neck. Not a wasp or a bee, nothing that actually stung, but something that bit and itched. Mosquito, maybe. And it was this that he blamed on his lapse of concentration at the crucial moment. He slapped at it and returned to the boy. So I find that interesting because this is the first time we've seen any kind of physical explanation or like maybe like if we're trying to like feel this out of what would this be like fully, like we kind of got from Eddie a little bit, some aspect of it, not as much from Odetta or Detta, but we did see quite a bit from Eddie, but it never really showed in any kind of, it was always more mental. And with this, do you perceive this as he actually does feel something on his neck, like a tingling sensation, or is this more of just like the breaking of the concentration because of Roland entering his mind basically made him think that there was, is he just perceiving it, or do you think there's actually like kind of a tingly nature to the entrance of another character in your mind?
I think the difference here is it's not that Eddie didn't feel it or Jack's imagining it. I think the difference here is that with Eddie, Roland always was tiptoeing, was sneaking, was looking but not doing, like he was doing with Jack here for just a second.
And he's just
he
lunging.
reacted. Yeah, he reacted on instinct. He lunges, he darts, he pushes.
Okay.
And everything.
So you think if there's like an act of force in that way, that there would be maybe a physical tingling of like almost losing your reality and somebody else taking it over.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between like what Jack feels when Roland enters and what Eddie feels. Eddie was calm, relaxed. He wasn't focusing on anything. He felt nauseous.
Yeah.
It says that in subchapter 1. But Jack was so focused on something that he didn't feel it. But see, with Eddie expected something.
Yeah.
Jack didn't.
Also, the other thing to think of, I just barely dawned on me too, is the difference if we're comparing them, is Jack's most likely not a drug addict. And, that maybe there's a dulled nature to senses in general, that maybe even if there was a feeling, even if it is more like creeping versus lunging, maybe there was a feeling, but it was like Eddie is so dulled by his condition that he doesn't feel it.
Well, also the stress of what he's thinking about. You know? He could be preoccupied with that. I mean, then at that point, why did Jack feel this if he was so preoccupied?
Yeah.
But I think that's where the difference is, that Roland subtly is coming forward with Eddie. And in this one, he's diving out the window and the glass is shattering around him, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what do you got next?
Yeah, so this next chapter is what I'm kind of talking about. He thought all this happened so Jack slaps at the mosquito filling, right? He thought all this happened in a bare wink. Actually, 7 seconds passed. He sensed neither the gunslinger's swift advance nor the equal swift retreat, and none of the people around him, going to work people, most from the subway station on the next block, their faces still puffy with sleep, their half-dreaming eyes turned inward. Notice Jack's eyes turn from their usual deep blue to a lighter blue behind the prim gold-rimmed glasses he wore. No one noticed those eyes darken to their normal cobalt color either, but when it happened and he refocused on the boy, he saw with frustrated fury, as sharp as a thorn, that his chance was gone. The light had changed. So there you kind of see what I'm talking about. It says Roland darts forward, darts back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we just found out that the moment has passed, and then
Which follows because Eddie lost time too.
right.
So when Roland does ultimately take over, it's basically like the complete lapses in time that you would see in like someone that's like blacking out or passing out or whatever, or when you go to the dentist, right? If you get put under at a doctor's or a dentist, it is just lost time. It feels like you're counting down from 100. And then suddenly you're waking up. It feels like it's been a couple seconds, but realistically, it's been 2 hours as they've just done something on you. You know
what this always reminds me of? The lost time in this book with Eddie and with Jack here. It always reminds me of those videos where you see someone like go into like an outhouse and then they put like a boardroom as a prank. They move like a container and like you're like, wait, where am I? What happened? That's what I picture. Like, I don't know why that's what comes to my head. And you're like. Or one is like you go into an elevator and you're coming out like on a cliff, like like they make it look like like that, stuff like that. Those ones like that's what comes to my head here is that wait, what's going on? But more to your point, I've had surgery. I've been put under for my appendix.
Yeah.
Know exactly what you're talking about. I woke up and I'm like, oh, it's like 2 minutes later. They're like, yeah, it's been 2 hours.
Yeah, I was closer to when I was 18 than now. But when I had my wisdom teeth taken out, they put me under for that. And I remember just being the most bizarre feeling of just like, well, there's 2 hours that's gone. Like that's so
I was
weird.
alive. I was here.
Yeah,
they were doing things to me.
Because like it would almost be even better if it was like sleep. Because I feel like even with sleep, you perceive time's passing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sleep, you're not like sitting there like waking up going, it feels like it was just a couple seconds ago I put my head on the pillow. Like, no, you perceive time passing when you're asleep.
Yeah, even if it's just a nap. You're like, because there's like that.
Sometimes you don't know how much time.
Yeah.
But,
there's like that guilty feeling when you wake up from a nap on your day off. And you're like, I just wasted some of my day off, Some people don't have that, but me and my wife both get that. Like, we don't like to take naps. It happens sometimes, but then it's like, how long was I asleep? Oh, you were asleep for about 2 hours. Like, damn it. That's 2 hours that I could have been doing something on my day off. But no, I know what you're talking about with like going to sleep at night. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep in about 7-8 hours. I'm going to wake up. But you wake up 3 hours before you're supposed to. And you're like, wait, what time is it? Oh, I still got great. And then you go back to sleep still expecting 3 hours to pass.
Yeah.
But in this one, like what we're talking about, it's like the surgery thing all over, the wisdom teeth. It's, okay, I'm going to close my eyes for just a second, but I'm going to reopen them. Because that's the thing is, like, when they put you under, it's like, count back from 10. I don't know if you remember how far you got. I got to 5.
Yeah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Close my eyes at 6, 5. Waking up in a completely different room with completely different people around me. I've obviously been moved. I hurt, and I'm like,
yeah,
the fuck's going on?
Yeah, I feel like from what I understand is I was coming out of it. Like I wasn't, I don't think I was there mentally yet, but I think I was like trying to like stand up and they were like having to like hold me down and
that
stuff.
happened to me too.
Yeah, so that's so it's just those weird things, and I think that's kind of what I perceive here with Jack is it's got to be that kind of feeling of like, and especially with what he's about to do, that's got to be a pretty freaky thing, like I think if any of us lost a couple, like call it 7 seconds like it says here, like we'd probably be like what the fuck, but like how much more so even if you're about to do like some horrible thing that like you're doing, you do something you do, but like I don't know, I feel like there's paranoia and stuff that would be involved, like I don't know, that'd be a trip.
It would be like the equivalence of like, I mean, obviously not murder is like one of the worst things that you could possibly do, but like, imagine if you were going to like key someone's car and you're like, okay, I'm going to go up here, and then you're just like black out for 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Like at the height of it, your adrenaline's going and everything like that, and then you're like 7 seconds gone. You're just like, what the fuck?
And that's exactly the right thing to talk about with Jack. Is there has to be adrenaline involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there has to be, or some sort of chemical release in the body, like, you know, whatever it might be, is going on. And so then to lose time in the middle of that must be something pretty shocking for him.
Yeah.
So then as it moves on here, he ends up watching the boy go, crossing the street. And then a little bit down, he starts to go the other way against the flow of traffic. Pisses off a teenager there. And my next one is he's kind of moving down the streets here. My next note is somewhere in the middle of the next block, he passed a building where the boy lived. So I guess I'll just read the rest of this I have highlighted. He gave it barely a glance, although he had followed the boy from it every school morning for the last 3 weeks. Followed him from the building to the corner 3.5 blocks further up 5th. The corner he thought of as the pushing place. So that's just kind of creepy, you know, like that, just the fact that he's like, oh yeah, that's where the kid lives. Like, cause like even there, as you're reading it, like before, I mean, the next couple sentences is going to give you the details on it, but it's just, I don't know. There's just a skeevy nature to that when it's like,
yeah.
oh, look, there's his house. Like there's the apartment building he lives in, you know, and then you read the other couple sentences and you're like, ugh.
You're getting like the feeling of what kind of person you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And every time something else is revealed, you're just going a bigger ugh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And then a little bit further down, it says here, by profession, he was a successful CPA. Pushing was only his hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just kind of
Yeah.
definitely not. I mean, I don't know. I guess what could we expect, right? I mean, you know, didn't Eddie make a remark about that? You know, you've got a split personalities person. You got a drug addict. Like, what the hell's the third one going to be? You know, what's your third drug going to be? So it's not like we could sit here and pretend that we thought this is going to be just some normal or good thing, right? Like it hasn't gone well for Roland up to this point. Each of his doors has brought maybe something that makes his journey more difficult than easy in different ways, you know, maybe to different extents. So in my mind, I remember at this point just reeling. I mean, I'm just like, you know, like I maybe this is what Roland, I mean, you know, Roland would be thinking, but it's like in my head, I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you can't bring a guy like this, you know what I mean, on the journey. Like, you know, that's one thing to have a dude that's like addicted to drugs and someone that's multiple personality, and one of the personalities is like kind of fucking psychotic. Kinda.
Really?
But, you know, this guy, it's like, this is like deplorable shit, man. This is some heinous shit. Like, you know, what's Detta doing? Like, you know, luring people in to like think she's gonna have sex with them and then like fucking beating them up and leaving them in the dirt. Like, that's a little
giving
bit
him blue balls.
That's a little bit different than fucking pushing a kid into traffic. So yeah, I just remember kind of reeling at this point, being just like, dude, are you fucking? Because like, I tend to always think more like from the perspective of storytelling, and so even when the story is unfolding, so I remember just pausing at this point where I'm just like, oh, you know, because I start thinking of it that way of like, okay, Two Doors has brought us two characters, kind of three, but this door here now is going to be our third person. And as I'm seeing this, I'm just like, what? Like, no.
I remember having the exact same kind of like visceral feeling towards Detta and Odetta. Like, he pulls Eddie and it's like, ooh, this is going to be a good character development. He's already getting clean in the book. Okay, so this is going to be a character that we're going to be able to use, and he's going to be useful and everything like that. But then you get Detta and Odetta, and you're just like, God, what the fuck are they going to do with this?
Yeah, even if they're able to handle the multiple personalities a little bit, or maybe make it whatever, bring it under a little bit more control, you still got the fact that she doesn't have legs. Like,
right,
you're not in a world that has, you know, what is it?
A sidewalk.
Yeah, or like ramps. What's the American thing in the 70s that legislated like ramps and accessibility? I'm blank on the name of it.
Isn't it the
I'm blanking.
Handicap Accessible Act or something
yeah,
like that.
From like the early 70s. Like, you're not in a world that has that. You're not even in a world that has sidewalks, for God's sake. I mean, I mean, Detta or Odetta are living in a time that is not very friendly to someone in a wheelchair. But now you're going to bring her into a place that's even less friendly. I mean, this is the wilderness.
They're on the ocean. They're on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, you don't take a wheelchair down to the beach. Like,
and
it does not work.
Even everything we've seen, right? Have we seen anything to show us anything that would look anything better than a Western? You know, like when you go into book 1, you're talking about, you know, in my mind, I actually can't remember if we ever were fully explained what Tull looked like, but I pictured your classic Western dirt road.
They're on the edge of a desert. Literally, like the desert borders the town.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to think, does it ever talk about actually having dirt roads and stuff,
Yeah.
or is that just more what we assume because it's what we assume because it's Westerns? But like, we haven't even had a real, or we haven't, I don't think that I can remember. Well, actually, maybe the train station stuff under the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the only time we like. I was gonna say maybe we haven't even seen if this world has concrete or not.
Yeah.
But the under the tunnel there was like the train station stuff where they found the skeletons, right?
Right.
So maybe it does exist, but it's certainly not widespread like it would be in New York City or whatever. So
go to any town. I mean, even my wife's town where she was born, literally not a stoplight.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about this. Literally, it's the freeway goes through the town, slows down, speeds back up on the other side. No stoplight. They have like 2 restaurants, 1 fast food place, and a couple gas stations. I mean, that's literally about it for the town.
yeah.
Blink and you miss it kind of place. They still have paved sidewalks
Yeah.
in their town. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the kids don't walk to school in the dirt or anything like that. I mean, they still walk on sidewalks, and that's in a town of, you know, maybe like 3,000, I think is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember, I remember having some of the same things where I'm just, because I'm associating with Roland, reading this and stuff. And like, you know, so with Eddie, I'm just like, what the fuck? You know, that's Odetta and Detta, I'm just like, what the fuck? It gets even worse. Like, not only the dangerous personality, but then like the having a wheelchair. And now you get to this and you're just, I just throw my hands up where I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
it was even
what the hell is
it was
going
even
on
worse
here,
for
dude?
me because like the finger thing was really bad. Him losing the fingers, just like, God, just kill the guy already, for God's sakes. Like, God, what more could you do to him?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to give him a psychotic who likes to push people in front of cars.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Because I remember it was right about this point because like, you know, and then like, because I actually remember thinking that the whole CPA thing too, because it's like, okay, not only is he like kind of a psycho, but then like he's not even like just like a crazy woodsman that maybe actually would have some like, you know-how for Roland's world, you know, because again, I'm just projecting forward in my head. I'm just like, whatever. But then you say CPA, he's in New York City. This guy's not going to be a guy that can rough it in the woods. This is going to be a guy that's like, you know, if it was just like some psychotic fucker that would like move into a small town to like kill someone and then they just live out in a fucking cabin in the middle of the fucking woods somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, at least that person, like, there's a lot of deplorable shit there, but at least you would be able to have the silver lining of like they can handle themselves in like Roland's world, maybe.
Yeah,
But-
or someone who's like, you know, like an abusive asshole who beats up his wife and kids or something like that, but lives on a ranch and does, you know, ranching. Okay, at least he knows some things about like animals and stuff like that. He might have some knowledge that we could use. Plus, he's, you know,
And then Roland can just
on the
bitch slap him.
Yeah,
and-
put him in line and everything like that. No, we're talking about one of like one of billions of office jobs in the world,
yeah.
and it happens to be, from what I get, kind of like an accountant.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly don't know what CPA stands for.
Now that you're asking, I'm kind of blanking on it. I have a friend that is a CPA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember what it stands for. It is accountant. CPA exam. Let's see. Anything in the chat? They might get it before me.
Nothing yet.
What does it mean? Let's just Google that, because certified public accountant.
So literally, it's an accountant.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Yeah, I knew it was accounting. I just don't know all the levels and stuff, because there's a few different levels of and acronyms that people can have. But yeah, so there was just part of me that's just like, so not like, I mean, I don't know, because like with Eddie, like there's part of me that thinks, okay, he's a drug addict, but also he grew up in the projects. Like he's someone that
The
can
street knowledge.
someone
the street tough.
someone that can at least he's going to be able to handle
Yeah.
adversity. You know, he has handled adversity. So like, I just, you know, I try to find the silver lining with them, you know, and, you know, I had a hard time with Odetta and Detta because obviously at this point it's just like, I don't know how the hell you're going to manage, you know, a rich, posh, very soft-spoken person
But-
in this world, and then a psychotic
Mm-hmm.
maniac on the other hand. Like, neither of those are very good for
But
you.
Roland talks about Odetta at one point and says that there's grit there.
Yeah,
there's a toughness there
for sure,
and
yeah.
everything. So that makes me feel like, oh, okay. But then we get to this one, and it's like, all right, you rolled the dice on 2, and you came up bad.
Yeah.
but you got to
got-
re-roll.
got snake eyes.
Yeah, you rolled 2 dice. And you got bad, but you were able to re-roll 1 dice, and then it's like, oh, okay. So I got 1 bad and 1 good. You rolled the dice on this one, and the dice just flew off the fucking table. Like, it's just like the worst possible scenario. You get a homicidal maniac. But on top of that, the dude's not even going to be useful because he's just a fucking accountant.
Yeah, I don't think accounting is going to be do a lot of good in Roland's world.
Let me count the berries that we're doing and see what we need to do about turning that into a form of currency.
All right, so subchapter 4. What do you got? In
Oh,
subchapter
basically the whole subchapter here. If you want to go over part of it, and I'll do the first part and let you handle the second part if you want to.
4? Okay.
The gunslinger returned back to the back of the man's mind and fainted there. If there was relief, it was simply that this man was not the man in black. It was not Walter. All the rest was utter horror and utter realization. Divorced of his body, his mind, his caw, was as healthy and acute as ever, but the sudden knowing struck him like a chisel blow to the temple. The knowing didn't come when he went forward, but when he was sure the boy was safe and slipped back again. He saw the connection between this man and Odetta, too fantastic and yet too hideously apt to be coincidental, and understood what the real drawing of the 3 might be and who they might be. So the part that I really from this first part was Roland explains in the 3rd paragraph that he's healthy. He's away from his diseased body. It's just his caw and everything like that.
Yeah.
But he still faints after going forward for 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Everything that Roland goes through after entering Jack Mort's body. Oh my God, that's Jake. Oh my God, is this the man in black? Lunging forward. Oh my God, am I going to be the one to kill Jake? Pulling back, finding that there's some connection between Jack Mort and Odetta causes him to faint.
Yeah.
I think it would take a hell of a lot to make Roland faint.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just his soul, caw is the kind of thing. But still, at the end of the day, that's pretty impressive to be able to get the gunslinger to faint.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't imagine he's probably ever fainted in his life, would be my guess.
Right? Passed out is different.
Yeah.
Passed out is, oh God, I'm drunk, I passed out. Oh God, I'm lightheaded from not eating or blood loss, I passed out.
Yeah.
But fainting is, oh, that's blood. Oh,
Yeah.
like someone else's blood, not even your blood, but there's people that do that. If they see blood, they faint. It's just, isn't it like a genetic disorder that does that?
No, I think it's more mental.
Mental? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So then it goes on here. It says the 3rd was not this man, this pusher. The 3rd, named by Walter, had been Death. Death, but not for you. That is what Walter, clever as Satan, even at the end had said. A lawyer's answer, so close to the truth that the truth was able to hide in its shadow. Death was not him. Death was become him. The prisoner, the lady. Death was the 3rd. He was suddenly filled with the certainty that he himself was the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I mean, I'd have to point out again from my normal perspective of like sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. So I guess there's lawyers in Roland's world.
Oh, he mentions that in the Eddie part up in the sky carriage.
What
He mentions lawyers.
does he?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I'm pretty sure that he does.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, there's that is to say that I don't know, just not necessarily one that you would expect to have in the world that we've seen with him,
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So what do you think of this this reasoning from Roland's side?
I at first I was just like, what the fuck? But like, it makes sense. But to me, it's like, well, then why do we have 3 doors? Like, what good is it here for this 3rd door if we're just going to get some psychotic? Like, the big question that popped here is that, okay, if Roland's the 3rd, Roland doesn't need to be drawn. He's already drawn.
Yeah.
Because we're drawing of the 3 drawn through the door is what I'm referring to, obviously. And part of me when I first reading this was like, what?
There's part
What
of me.
is this?
There's part of me that started perceiving that at this point that maybe Detta and Odetta counted as two, so that you did have a drawing of the
yeah.
three. But because especially with all this kind of stuff, and then the fact that you're disconnecting with what, again, and this is kind of what this is highlighting, disconnecting what the Man in Black said versus what we're actually seeing and what the door said. Right? We talked about that at the beginning of the episode. Like there's a divergence between what the card said versus what the door said.
Right.
Now Roland's kind of piecing it together and realizing that it's I don't know, it is death. Like this is basically, this guy is death. But not for Roland. That's the clever thing, right?
Yeah,
Death
the big thing for me is when it says death, but not for you. He says it here again. Is then for who? Like that's where I was kind of like sitting here, like, okay, so we're not going to get Jack as the third. Roland's the third, so we got our three, but Roland's is death, but not for you. So who is the death for? And of course, instantly my mind went to Eddie because Eddie's my boy already by this point. So it's just like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
Or maybe the other thing that
I even thought of it from the perspective of Jake, right?
Well, the other thing that popped into my head is kind of what you just said. Odetta. There's two people there, right?
Yeah.
I kind of thought, what if, as I continued, like just right here before getting any further, I kind of thought, oh, well, what if one of them dies?
Yeah.
And then we just have, instead of we have a multiple personality, we just have the one survivor.
Yeah.
So part of me was like, what if it's this? What if it's this? What if it's this? What if it's this? Those were the two that first went through my mind was, oh, fuck, what about Eddie? And then, oh, what if it's one of the multiple personalities? What if it's Detta or Odetta that goes?
Yeah. Now that's the question. If it came down to that, which one would you want it to be?
I would want Detta to be dead, of course.
But she's the useful one, right?
No.
That's what Roland said.
Roland says that Odetta has a steel in her as well. Not as like...
No, but
if he says if he was going to take one into a fight, he would take Detta.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, he appreciated the like, he's like, if I could harness the, like, and can, like, whatever with Detta, it'd be a useful person in a fight, basically.
Right. If you can harness. But you could also teach Odetta to be harder.
Yeah.
That's the thing for me is that I don't want to have to sleep with one eye open for the rest of my life. If it's me, I'm taking Odetta. She's not going to try and kill me.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
Especially for some imagined slight. I mean, you poisoned the meat. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, indeed. Anything else you got on this, or jump to subchapter 5?
5.
Alrighty. So on 5 here, it says Roland came forward as nothing but a projectile, a brainless missile programmed to launch the body he was in at the Man in Black the instant he saw him. The thought of what might happen if he stopped the Man in Black from murdering Jake did not come until later. The possible paradox, the fistula in time and dimension, which might cancel out everything that had happened after he had arrived at the way station. For surely if he saved Jake in this world, there would have been no Jake for him to meet there, and everything which would have happened therefore would change, or thereafter would change. So this is kind of getting into now where, like, Roland starting, like, it's basically saying that he didn't think about it till after. But as you mentioned before, it's definitely more of a almost a missile launch, as it says here. With Roland, he definitely comes through ready to pulverize the Man in Black. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Oh, let's see. We got Jack says, when I first read this part, I thought it would be Detta and Odetta, but I think I was still thinking about the relationship realization that Roland had about Jack being the pusher and the connection he had with Odetta. Yeah, which we're just about to get to here. So yeah, what do you got next in 5 here?
Right towards the end, it says he scanned the people clustered on the corner quickly. Seeing each face, he scanned the women as closely as the men, making sure there wasn't one pretending to be a woman. Walter wasn't there. Gradually, he relaxed, as a finger curled around a trigger may relax at the last moment. No, Walter was nowhere around the boy, and the gunslinger somehow felt sure that this wasn't the right when. Not quite. That when was close, 2 weeks away, a week, maybe even a single day. but it was not quite yet. So we went back on the way he saw, and
with this, I find this
Yeah.
interesting because this was the moment, though, right? Because Jack was ready to push him, and it was Roland's interference. So it's like that was the moment that Jake was supposed to die.
Mhm.
So, like, with this, it's like, this is just Roland, like, basically missing the mark by thinking, like, no, this isn't the time. It was close, 2 weeks away, a week away, a single day, possibly. So he's thinking, like, no, this wasn't the time. But no, it was. You just ruined it, though. Like, you stopped him from doing it. But there's part of me that almost wishes that, like, didn't we get a song playing and stuff in the first telling? So there's almost part of me that wishes we almost had more details, because, like, there's really maybe there's enough ambiguity here that maybe this wasn't the moment, maybe this is just like a dry run, but like for me, I'm just like, Roland, you're kind of missing it here, like that.
No, that's what the stuff that you just covered shows, is that he actually did miss the point. I mean, it specifically calls it out that he misses that this is the start of a paradox, because now Jake is going to live.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, Roland absolutely misses the mark, thinking that, Jack was going to push him, but something was going to happen that he's not actually going to push him. That Walter was going to push him later, is what he's saying.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So he's like, oh, that's how he explained it to himself. That this wasn't the actual moment. Walter's the one that pushed him, not Jack.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. What do you got next?
Let me check.
Moving into 6. Got a lot on 6.
Oh
here.
yeah, like the whole subchapter here is just like, I mean, I don't want to read the whole thing. But basically, I mean, like, do you want me to
finishing the thought here, because it says on the way he saw and fell senseless with shock. This man, into whose mind the third door opened, had once sat waiting just inside the window of a deserted tenant building, or a tenant room in a building full of abandoned rooms, abandoned that was, except for the winos and crazies that often spent their nights there. You knew about the winos because you could smell their desperate, sweaty angry piss, and you knew about the crazies because you could smell the stink of their deranged thoughts. The only furniture in this room was 2 chairs. Jack Mort was using both, one to sit in and one to prop the door opening into the hallway closed. He expected no sudden interruptions, but it was best not to take chances. He was close enough to the window to look out, but far enough behind the slanted window shadow line to be safe from any casual viewers. He had a crumbly red brick in his hand. He had pried it from just outside the window, where a good many were loose. It was an old, eroded at the corners, but heavy chunks of ancient mortar clung to it like barnacles. So, yeah, definitely kind of a nasty picture to start off with here.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says the man meant to drop the brick on someone. He didn't care who. When it came to murder, Jack Mort was an equal opportunity employer. After a bit, a family of 3 came along the sidewalk below. A man, woman, a little girl. The girl had been walking along the inside, presumably to keep her safe from traffic. There was quite a lot of it this close to the railway station, but Jack Mort didn't care about auto traffic. What he cared about was the lack of buildings directly opposite him. These had already been demolished, leaving jumbled wastelands of splintered boards and splintered board, broken brick, and glinting glass. He would lean out for a few seconds. He was wearing sunglasses over his eyes and an out-of-season knit cap over his blonde hair. It was like the chair under the doorknob. Even when you were safe from expected risk, there was no harm in reducing those unexpected ones which remain. So we're kind of getting here a vision of kind of who Jack is. He's definitely taking a lot of precautions down to the buildings he's selecting. He's selecting with across the street in mind. He's wearing certain things. He's, propping things against doors. Like, he's not a casual, criminal that's like going to get caught. Like, he's obviously, I always try to think of, it reminds me of Heat. The movie Heat with De Niro and Pacino. There's the diner scene, and they're like, and Pacino's the cop, and he says, sometimes we catch guys that, they just want to be caught, and he's like, he must work a lot of shitty ass crews. He's like, do I look like some idiot with Born to Lose tattooed on my forehead? And Al Pacino's like, no, you don't, and that reminds me of this. Like, that's kind of Jack Mort here. He doesn't have Born to Lose tattooed on his forehead. Right. This is a careful motherfucker. This is he's very careful about what he's doing. And we're, from what we've seen here, and we're going to get a little bit more as the subchapter goes on, but he's definitely not like impulsive. He's not like I always think of, like, you always hear the statistics of like bank robberies. Like 90% of bank robbers get caught. Like it's fairly high. Like you may as well go play the casinos. You probably have better odds than getting away with a bank robbery. But people do it, and it's usually dumb people, and it's usually people that are desperate perhaps, but it's people that don't plan things out. Like you don't get like the movie heist type thing that are going to go in and rob a bank, generally speaking, like unless there's a lot more to it. Like that's never the thing, is to go rob like the whatever.
What I'm seeing more and more, the way I look at it, and there's some stuff as well that's played a part in my interpretation of heist and stuff like that, is like GTA 5 has heist missions where you have to do like setups, go get the costumes, go get the weapons, go get the getaway vehicles and all that kind of stuff and everything. And I watched a couple of those videos and I'm like, oh, okay, this is like classic heist stuff.
Yeah.
But the more and more I look at real life, you know what I see majority of the time when I see bank robberies? I see it broken down into 3 categories. A teller who's disgruntled tells her boyfriend how to rob the bank. He gets his best friend, goes in and tries to rob it.
Yeah.
Something like that, employee, some kind of knowledge.
Inside job.
Yeah, some kind of thing like that. Like, hey, Tad, if you come to my bank at this time, there's a crap ton of money just like sitting behind the desk. Like they're ready for the pickup. So they just take it out of the vault against protocol and just set it there. Stuff like that. Second one, I've seen this a lot, and I don't know if it's just because the media loves these kinds of stories, but I see like cons that'll be like, I can't make it on the outside, so they go rob a bank.
Yeah.
They stick it up and they're like, okay, give me the money. They take like $50 or like a stack of bills, and they'll literally go sit outside, put the gun down, and wait to be arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third one is the legit wannabes who try to plan a bank robbery thinking that they know what they're doing. We just had one here in Utah. What was it, just a couple months ago up north? 3 people walked into a bank wearing masks, thought that they could rob it, got caught No. It was just, it was like one person thought she could rob a bank, put a mask on, went in, tried it, and got caught in 90 minutes. 90 minutes. That's how long she lasted.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't go like the movies, and it's a loser sport there. But yeah, we definitely aren't getting that from Mr. Mort here. Jack in the chat says he's very methodical, reminds me of Kevin Costner and Mr. Brooks. That's actually a movie I always wanted to see, but I never got to see it back in the day. I feel like that came out in the early 2000s, and I think it came out maybe close to one of the Star Wars movies, and I think that's probably why I didn't get around to seeing it. But it is one I do need to see for sure. And then a little bit further down here, it says it serves another then it talks about what he's wearing. He's wearing a shirt much too big for him. It came down to his mid-thighs. It would confuse the actual size and shape of his body. It also served another purpose as well. When he depth charged someone, that's how he always thought of it, as depth charging. He came in his pants. The baggy shirt also covered the wet spot, which invariably formed on his jeans. So
again, sick individual.
Yeah, now you're talking like, now you're getting into like Mindhunter type stuff, where it's like, how often, when it comes to serial killers and stuff, there's like a sexual nature to it, and so King's just adding that in. It's like, good Lord, like this. This guy is, it just gets worse with this guy. Just hope that King doesn't make it worse. That's like one of those like, all right, King, you've made it bad enough.
Like ease up, bro. Come on.
What do you got?
So right after that, it says, now they were closer. Don't jump the gun. Wait, just wait. That's him, internal monologue there. He shivered at the edge of the window, brought the brick forward, drew it back to his stomach, brought it forward again, withdrew it again, but this time only halfway, and then leaned out, totally cool now. He always was at the penultimate moment. He dropped the brick and watched it fall. It went down, swapping one end for the other. Jack saw the clinging barnacles and motor clearly in the sun. At these moments, as at no others, everything was clear. Everything stood out with exact and geometrical perfect substance. Here was a thing which he had pushed into reality. As a sculptor swings a hammer against a chisel to change stone and create some new substance from the brute caldera, here was the world's most remarkable thing, logic, which was also ecstasy. Sometimes he missed or struck aslant, as the sculptor may carved badly or in vain, but this was a perfect shot. The brick struck the girl in the bright gingham dress squarely on the head. He saw blood. It was brighter than the brick, but would eventually dry to the same maroon color, splash up. He heard the start of the mother's scream. Then he was moving. Jack crossed the room and threw the chair, which had been under the knob, into the far corner. He kicked the one he sat in while waiting, aside as he crossed the room. He yanked up the sweatshirt and pulled a bandana from his back pocket. He used it to turn the knob. No fingerprints allowed. Only Don't Beasley fingerprints. He stuffed the bandana into the back pocket again, even as the door was swinging open. As he walked down the hall, he assumed a faintly drunken gait. He didn't look around. Looking around was only for Don't Bees. Doobies knew that trying to see if someone was noticing you was a sure way to accomplish just that. Looking around was the sort of thing a witness might remember after an accident. And then some smart-ass cop might decide that it was a suspicious accident and there would be an investigation. All because of one nervous glance around. Jack didn't believe anyone could connect him with the crime, even if someone described the accident was suspicious and there was an investigation. But take only acceptable risks. Minimize those which remain. In other words, always prop a chair under the doorknob.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, again, it just goes into what I was saying a few minutes ago, but it gets even more extreme. As like this guy, he has this shit thought out, and he's not one that he's not impulsive. He's got this whole thing built up in his mind of like doobies and don't bees. When it comes to what he should and shouldn't do, and he has all this stuff fairly well thought out too. I mean, even down to things like like how to walk and stuff like that.
A drunken gait, yeah.
I mean, just deplorable. I mean, this guy is it's rough to read with this guy here. It's I don't know what to say, to be honest. Like, this is just like we're basically seeing. Not only is he someone that would push Jake into traffic, but he's one that will drop bricks on people. And yeah, that's a rough one, man. That's a rough addition to his resume here. So let's see. I just lost my spot. Where did you end off there?
In other words, always prop a chair under the doorknob.
Okay. And then I mean he's got the sweater. I mean, even like the sweatshirt changing everything about his appearance, like his shape and size or whatever. And then just everything. He doesn't leave fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. A little bit further down here, it says all of the things which happened after, the cries, the confusion, the wails of the wounded, if the wounded were still capable of wailing, were not things which mattered to Jack. What mattered was the thing which pushed change into the ordinary course of things and sculpted new lines in the flow of lives, and perhaps the destinies not only of those struck, but of a widening circle around them, like ripples from a stone tossed into a still pond. And like I can't help but think with this, like when he's talking about this, there's part of me, I guess, that would say that like maybe you almost feel good that at least that he's like a small timer, because when I think of someone lurking in a window that wants to change things, there's
I know where your mind goes.
There's one that comes to mind that changed the world in a big way by standing in a window in Dealey Plaza.
Yeah.
Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald. So, whether he did it alone or not, that's debatable. But, there is just part of me that thinks like at least if you want to find some silver lining in what we've seen so far, at least he's someone that is not like, I mean, I guess it depends on how you looked at it, I guess, because, maybe it's even worse because he's wounding like needy people potentially or whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy that could be fucking taking shots at police commissioners or governors or senators or presidents. He definitely has the mind for it. One thing I found interesting too is a little bit further back. The one thing was Logic, which is also ecstasy. I find that interesting because that just seems like something that sounds perfect for someone that would be a CPA. Someone
right.
someone that's like basically built their I guess their career is built around math.
Yeah.
You know, same with like a science, like math and science, like those are like immutable things, right? Like they don't change. Like what is true in science, like gravity, that doesn't change.
Right.
Math is even more like restrictive. Like math is fucking math. Like if aliens showed up tomorrow, we would try to communicate with them via math because that should be a universal principle that applies to everything. So even if a creature has no comprehension of speech the way we do, they should understand math in a similar way. So it would just be a matter of almost translating how we interpret math versus they interpret math and maybe make that a touchstone. So it's like, I find that interesting that for him to be an accountant, that line just seems to fit perfectly.
No, it does. It really does.
Okay, so let's see a little bit further, or I guess no, the next thing here, but I have it highlighted in a separate color because I just feel like it's almost, for me, it was a separate thought. Is who was to say that he had not sculpted the cosmos today, or may not at some future time? God, no wonder he creamed his jeans. So you also have this delusions of grandeur. I mean, like he's checking the boxes here, man. We should watch Mindhunters, and he's definitely ticking a lot of boxes when it comes to being a fucking lunatic. And well written by Mr. King for sure, like because he is checking all these boxes, right? We've even talked about. I mean, he used like the term schizophrenic for incorrectly for Data and Odetta, and like that was a little bit more common back in the 80s when this was written, but like. I don't know how much, I don't know how much was known about serial killers because this is still right at the height of the serial killer craze, and like they're still happening like crazy.
Yeah,
it just makes me wonder, like, man, was like King investigating all this shit, or does he know this from like media? Because it sure seems like he's writing this very very well. Like I've read some other fiction things that have serial killers that aren't as well crafted as this when it comes to to fitting like real perspectives of serial killers. So what do you got next in this subchapter here?
So a little bit further down, he goes back, and there's this one part here. He talks about they mention that people are running. He's muttering. He's not saying anything that anyone would remember. He's just kind of muttering nonsense. And this part here gets to me. Now he sauntered down an alley, not so filthy as the first one. The first two, almost in fact a lane. This fed into another street, and a block up there was a bus stop. Less than a minute after he got there, a bus arrived, which was also part of the schedule. Jack entered when the door's accordion opened and dropped his 15 cents into the slot of the coin receptacle. The driver did not so much as glance at him. That was good, but even if he had, he would have seen nothing but a nondescript man in jeans, a man who might have been out of work. The sweatshirt he was wearing looked like something out of a Salvation Army grab bag. Be ready. Be prepared. Be a doobie. Jack Mort's secret for success, both at work and at play. The fact that he calls it play is a big thing there that I want to focus on.
And they called it a hobby earlier too. Like that's not good. I don't like that.
And then 9 blocks away there was a parking lot. Jack got off the bus, entered the lot, unlocked his car, an unremarkable mid-50s Chevrolet, which was still in fine shape, and drove back into New York City. He was free and clear. Like, that just meticulous nature of it.
Yeah.
Bandana, no fingerprints, move both of the chairs because, I mean, it's something that could very easily be missed by someone. Yeah, move the chair from away from the door, but they leave the chair sitting by the window, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, that window is right below. Wait a minute. Okay, we need to start looking a little bit closer at this.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
with that, he thought about that. You mentioned it. He takes on like a drunken gait so that he kind of blends in with who would be in that type of building.
Yeah.
The clothes disguise his figure perfectly. He hides his hair. He wears sunglasses. It's daytime. So the sunglasses don't look out of place,
Yeah.
Someone would remember if, 9 o'clock at night, it's dark, and there's a guy wearing, I just spaced on what they're
Aviators.
called. Aviators. Aviator sunglasses blocking half his face. It's like, wait a minute, why is that guy wearing glasses? It's dark out.
Yeah.
But, this is daytime. He's wearing sunglasses. He even mentions it here, like, even if the bus driver had noticed him and noticed, like, the sweatshirt was baggy, because he's up close now, it's, he's probably just a guy that's out of work. I wouldn't mention him if someone came asking, hey, did you see anyone strange on your route today?
Yeah.
around this time, no.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, very nondescript. I think that's what you're ultimately shooting for, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what he describes the car. They describe the car as is an unremarkable,
And the fact that, I mean, even mid-50s, we got to remember that this is in the early 60s that this is happening. So that's not even a 10-year-old car.
Yeah.
So, and like, it's always...
No, it's in the 50s. It's when Odetta's a child.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, when I can't remember when she got hit. I know that was... I feel like we've gone through that before, maybe on a round table with Chris from Australia, where we worked out, like, everyone's ages and timelines. But yeah, I mean,
I think she was like 10 and then got pushed onto the subway when she was 18, right?
I'm not sure. I don't remember
Yeah.
in terms of, yeah, but mid 50s. I mean,
It
yeah,
does give us a point of reference here so we know what year Jake was supposed to die. Just an FYI later in this chapter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So then subchapter 7 here, the gunslinger saw all of this in a mere moment. Before his shock mind could shut down the other images by simply shutting down, he saw more, not all, but enough. So that's a little bit of teasing from Mr. King there. Subchapter 8, it says he saw Mort cutting a piece of front page from the New York Daily Mirror with an X-Acto knife, being fussily sure to stay exactly upon the line of the column. And then the headline is Negro Girl Comatose After Following Tragic Accident. The headline read, he saw Mort applying glue to the back of the clipping and with the brush that attached to the cover of the paste pot. Saw Mort position it at the center of a blank page of a scrapbook, which from the bumpy, swelly look was of the foregoing pages contained many other clippings. He saw the opening lines of the pieces. 5-year-old Odetta Holmes, who came to Elizabethtown, New Jersey to celebrate joyous occasion, is now the victim of a cruel freak accident. Following the wedding of an aunt 2 days ago, the girl and her family were walking towards a rail station when the brick tumbled. But that wasn't the only time that he had had his dealings with her, was it? No, God's no. So that's that's interesting.
I think that's actually a continuity error.
What?
Well, she was 5 years old, and he had a mid-50s car. That doesn't line up because she gets drawn in 1964.
Yeah, because it's the year after JFK.
The year after JFK dies.
Yeah.
That doesn't line up properly because she's supposed to be way older than Eddie. This isn't lining up right, timeline-wise. Chris! I got a new investigation for you.
Yeah, I can even jump into this a little bit, probably, and talk about it on the next book club or roundtable, and talk about just how these timelines line up. If you want to remind me once this show's over, so I can take a note down and remember to look into it, because I feel like between I probably even still have Chris's email where we establish their ages, and then from there we can I'm sure establish a timeline, because like how old was she when she was bombed, how old is she when she, like whatever. But yeah, that might very well be an issue, because I actually vaguely thought of that. I just didn't say it, but you did, in terms of if this is a mid-50s car, that doesn't really make sense with the 1960s, 1964 being when she was drawn. So
yeah, because I was just flipping back in my book, and it says that she became active in the civil rights movement in 1957.
And they're talking, well, the thing that I always remember that places me with her drawing is, yeah, because it is the drawing, because it's the day before she's drawn, is her conversation with the driver about JFK, and she remembers exactly how long ago it was, and it's told in months, not in years. So it's in 1964. I believe we actually brought it down when we covered that subject. I think I had done the math to figure out exactly the date that took place. But she said it was like whatever, X amount of months, X amount of days type thing since the Kennedy was assassinated. So yeah, it definitely is an early 64 that happens. So yeah, I guess you're right. That would be problematic for the timeline there. It looks like we got Mark in the chat, Alan in the chat. Hello, guys.
Oh, hey, Alan.
Okay, so then going on
And
here,
Mark.
You didn't say it in the chat, to be fair.
I did, but still, no one's gonna see the chat, so I don't want it to seem like I'm just like shunning Mark.
God,
you know?
that Peter guy, he's a dick.
God.
It goes on here. So then there had been Odetta again. The first time he had pushed something on her. The second time he had pushed her in front of something. What sort of man is this that I'm supposed to use? What sort of man? But then he thought of Jake. Thought of the push which had sent Jake into this world, and he thought he had heard the laughter of the man in black, and that finished him. Roland fainted. So just to kind of add to your whole thing of what made Roland faint. It wasn't necessarily, it was all of this, right? It was the fact he's about to push Jake. It's the fact that he basically in a mere few seconds gets flashed with all this stuff with Odetta, both times, as well as hearing the laughter, which of course I think of tittering laughter of the man in black, almost like, that just, all of that's what ultimately is going to cause him to faint. As you know, now we're whatever, but I love that we have that line because we actually just had that conversation a little bit ago. What sort of man is this that I'm supposed to use? What sort of man? So Roland is now having the same conversation that we had a couple pages ago of like, what the fuck, man? Like with King, it's like, you know, if King were reading this out loud, you know, somebody would have stood up and go, what the fuck, King? Like, what are you doing? Quit doing this. You're gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Okay, so then moving into subchapter 9, I actually have a tiny note that I found here because we basically come into Roland waking up from passing out. And it says when he came to, he was looking at a neat row of figures marching down a sheet of green paper. The paper had been ruled both ways, so each single figure looked like a prisoner in a cell. So it's basically a printed spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But the one thing I wanted to point out here is this might be a little bit of an Easter egg. And this is what I actually have something here. So in one of the afterwards, I think I took it down as the gunslinger, but I actually ended up looking after I typed this and didn't see an afterword with the gunslinger. So I don't know where I got this from, but I know it's something that I've seen. And this is a quote. It says the Dark Tower began, I think, because I inherited a ream of paper in the spring semester of my senior year of college. The ream of paper I inherited was bright green, nearly as thick as cardboard, and an extremely eccentric size, 7 inches by 10 inches long, as I recall. So this, I mean, green paper, maybe this is a reference to the paper that King wrote Gunslinger on. I don't know, just a thought I had this time.
That's pretty cool.
I don't think I've ever had that thought before, but this time as I was reading it through for this episode, I was like, green paper, like it just jogged my memory. I'm like, King wrote on green paper at one point. And yeah, so that was what he wrote on his first draft of Gunslinger. He used green paper to write. So maybe it's a little bit of an Easter egg reference.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe accounting has to use green paper. If they do, then you can throw all that out. I don't know, but it did jump out at me as kind of an interesting thing to call out the paper color, and maybe it's a reference to the first book. And this is still early on, you know, something King maybe, I mean, not that he would forget necessarily, but this is still the second book, so he's still pretty close to that writing. He's closer to that writing now than he will be obviously in the future. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you got next in number 9 here?
We actually missed one of my notes. Just before subchapter 9 starts, it says, that's why I couldn't find it. I was looking in 9 for it because I just write down the page.
Oh.
And then the start of the sentence so I can go over it. And then, yeah, it's just before subchapter 9, it says, what sort of man is this that I'm supposed to use? What sort of man? And then he thought of Jake. Thought of the push which had sent Jake into the world, and he thought he heard the laughter of the men in black. And that finished him. Roland fainted. So that right there is just the question that we were asking, like, what we were talking about earlier. That's why I wrote it down, is like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, you give me this, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, indeed.
So
indeed. Okay, so into 9 here. It's next down here. It says he thought something else, not just Walter's laughter, something, a plan. No, gods, no, nothing as complex and hopeful as that, but an idea at least, a tickle. How long have I been out? He thought with a sudden alarm. Maybe it was maybe 9 o'clock when I came through the door, maybe a little earlier. How long? He came forward. Jack Mort, who is now only a human doll controlled by the gunslinger, looked up a little and saw the hands of the expensive quartz clock on his desk stood at 1:15. Gods, that late? As late as that? But Eddie, he was so tired he can never or he can never have stayed awake for so long, and then it cuts off here. The gunslinger turned Jack's head. The door was still there, but what he saw through it was far worse than what he could have imagined. Standing on one side of the door, there was two shadows, one with the wheelchair and one with the human being, but the human being was incomplete, supporting itself on its arms because its lower legs had been snatched away in the same brutality as Roland's fingers and toes. The shadow moved. Roland whipped Jack Mort's head away at once, moving with the whiplash speed of a striking snake. She mustn't look in, not until I'm ready. Till then, she sees nothing but the back of this man's head. And then here, King kind of corrects Roland in a way. Detta would not have seen Jack Mort in any case because the person looking through the open door saw only what the host saw. So she could only see Jack Mort's face if he looked into a mirror, although that may lead to its own awful consequences of paradox or repetition. But even then, it would mean nothing mean nothing to either lady. For that matter, the lady's face would not mean anything to Jack Mort, although they had twice been on terms of deadly intimacy. They had never actually seen each other. Yeah, and then what the gunslinger didn't want is for the lady to see the lady, not yet at least. So for me, I think I mentioned this earlier. I love the mechanics of things. I think I said that probably way back when we were talking about Eddie's door. I love mechanics, so this kind of stuff I'm glad, because like if it would have just been Roland's line there without King's paragraph to kind of correct Roland in a way and say like, no, actually, she's not going to see that. She's not looking at the back of his head. She's seeing through his eyes. But from Roland's perspective, he's just not thinking straight, and he's thinking that because the door is behind him, that she would be looking at the back of his head. Like, I could see where the confusion comes from, but I'm glad King put his paragraph in there, because it really would have bothered me as a first-time reader if that wasn't there, because I would have been like, wait a minute. No, I thought the person that's looking through the door sees what you see. So why are you saying it's going to see? Like, that would have bothered me. So as one that likes the mechanics of things,
yeah,
I'm glad that's written the way that it is, because yeah, it's good to know that, like, and to establish things like that. Like, the only way for her to see the mirror is, or the only way for her to see his face is through, if he looked into a mirror.
Right.
So I love that kind of stuff, because it just makes it clear of what we're dealing with. So what do you got next?
Actually, the next line is going along the lines of what you were talking about. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. What the gunslinger didn't want was for the lady to see the lady. Not yet, at least. The spark of intuition grew closer to a plan. But it was late over there. The light had suggested to him that it might have been 3 in the afternoon, perhaps even 4. How long until sunset brought the monstrosities and the end of Eddie's life? 3 hours? 2? He could go back and try to save Eddie, but that was exactly what Detta wanted. She had laid a trap, just as villagers who fear a deadly wolf may stake out a sacrificial lamb to draw it into bowshot. He would go back into his diseased body, but not for long. The reason he had seen only her shadow was because she was lying beside the door with one of his revolvers curled in her fist. The moment his Roland body moved, she would shoot it and end his life.
Yeah, that's I love just the timeline kind of thing going on. We've seen that in this book before, where last we saw things were fine on that side.
Detta was missing.
Yeah,
Eddie was left alone with a gun.
Yeah, and just so for him to look back and just to see what he's seeing, and then like to kind of go through basically looking through the strategy of it. Like, to me, I just love that, because it's like, so time has changed, and obviously with him passing out, that makes sense that stuff has changed. There's been ample time for things to shift over there.
Yeah.
But I love that, because it's just like, oh shit, like, yeah, we haven't seen anything. Like, last we knew, things were just whatever.
It's the classic, so you're probably wondering how I ended up here kind of thing, without actually, breaking the fourth wall and saying that.
Yeah.
It's I passed out. Hey, look, that has changed. And then it's like, well, you can't just say that. You got to show me how that came to be. I mean, that guy there has no face. Like, how did he end up with no face? Like stuff like that. It's kind of like the thing, the one that comes to my mind, obviously the no face thing is like what I think of, is Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Like, we get most of his escape. I'm talking about Hannibal Lecter here, by the way. We get most of his escape out of prison. But then we get the guards coming up and seeing the results. And it's like, Wait, so what happened?
Yeah,
Like, he did what?
Yeah, we're deceived the same as the characters are being deceived. And
Exactly.
we get the reveal about the time they realize something's wrong.
Exactly. And so,
You know what it made me think of? No Face.
No
is
Face?
because I'm just on a fresh rewatch of Chernobyl. There's a point when she's interviewing. There's the one guy that that was ordered to go look over the balcony to see that the reactor was there or not, and looked over for a couple seconds. And we don't actually, when the scene is shot where she's interviewing him at the hospital, the other two guys she interviews we see, but there's the one guy. It's very careful not to show you him. And then when she's talking later to Legasov, she's like, he had no face. And it's just like, oh, so that I literally watched that yesterday. So when you say no face, yeah, that's that's what I think of. So horrific either way. Just one is more based in reality maybe than the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so his ending, because she feared him, would at least be merciful. Eddie's would be a screaming horror. I love that. That's I mean, not that I love it, but it's
You love Eddie dying? Hashtag Ted is terrible. What the hell, dude?
it's just one of those things that it's, I don't know. Sometimes King just
The way it's described.
the way that King puts it on there, and just merciful versus a screaming horror is just a wonderful way to explain two deaths. A little bit further down here says, how are you doing on the Dorfman account? The bald man asked. I feel ill. I think I'm gonna, I think it was my lunch. I think I might leave. The bald man looked worried. It's probably a bug. I heard a nasty one's going around. Probably. Well, as long as you get the Dorfman stuff finished by 5 tomorrow afternoon. Yes, because you know what a dong he can be. Yes. The bald man now looked uneasy and nodded. Yes, go home. You don't seem like yourself at all. I'm not. The bald man went out of the door in a hurry. He sensed me, the gunslinger thought. That was part of it. Part, but not all. They're afraid of him. They don't know why, but they're afraid of him, and they have a right to be afraid. I like that. I mean, that's maybe the spot where, like, maybe it diverts from reality of serial killers, because usually the ones that are kind of under the radar tend to, like, be as normal as anyone. But, like, still, King's done a very good job up to this point of basically crafting this guy to be.
It's not like Dahmer, who, like, his neighbors were shocked.
Yeah.
Or John Wayne Gacy or Bundy.
Yeah.
The three big ones always that stick out to me with, like, normality. I mean,
and BTK. I mean, he was, like, serving at his church and stuff, and, like, went around evangelizing door to door, and, you know, he was the bind, torture, kill guy. And then the fucking Green River Killer. I mean, it just seems like when you start going through the list, like, a majority of them were not like these, like, weird, you know, skeevy, like, Norman Bates types. Like, not, I guess Norman Bates is kind of boy next door too. I'm thinking, like, the very last scene when he's kind of weird and acting all strange. Like, it's not that Norman Bates. It's the other half of Norman Bates that most of these killers are.
Even like the Norman Bates where they're sitting together. What are they having dinner? And he has, like, the taxidermies in the room and everything. He's like awkward and weird and kind of gives off like a weird vibe
at moments, but other times he seems very normal, and I think that's what scared people about the movie originally, is he did seem so boy next door. You know, but that's the way most of these guys are. So maybe one tiny strike against King on, you know, building a serial killer is that generally speaking, you don't have people that are like that have any indication of it. Usually the people that say, oh yeah, I knew all along. Yeah, you're full of shit. Like, that's not the way serial killers work, or they'd probably get caught. And then do you got anything the rest of the subchapter?
Jack's body got up, found the briefcase the man had been carrying when the gunslinger entered him, and swept all the papers on the surface of the desk into it. He felt an urge to sneak a look back at the door and resisted it. He would not look again until he was ready to risk everything and come back. In the meantime, time was short, and there were things which had to be done. I highlighted that because, like, he resisted the urge. I'm not going to lie. If my life depended on something like that, I would have a really hard time not looking.
Yeah.
I'm Allie, 19. 19, okay.
Yeah.
I could try and resist for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to say that word eventually.
Yeah. It's like, don't look up. Like, it's only so far before.
Yep. You know, it's that one, you know, like what is it, like a psychological thing? It's like if someone starts talking about elephants, you instantly start thinking about elephants.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, or you tell someone don't think about elephants, like, what are they going to think about?
Or like there was one last night that me and my wife were talking about, is that you don't realize how uncomfortable your tongue is sitting in your mouth until someone mentions it. It's just like, my tongue is huge.
So for me, I actually was thinking about that recently because I had to go to the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had a few times at the dentist where I like trying to keep my tongue like out of the way or like whatever, like it gets in the way. There's literally one time, not every, like of all the times I've gone to the dentist, it's only ever happened once. But it was like so, and I think it was a further back tooth, like close to a wisdom tooth almost level, that he literally had a dental assistant come in and hold my tongue down with like a something.
Tongue depressor?
Not necessarily, 'cause they don't really have those, but some sort of tool. Then like literally pin my tongue down while he worked on. So I had like two people. Like, it's and like so like as I was coming up on this new dentist appointment recently, I was just like thinking about that. I'm like, God, that sucked. I hope that doesn't happen again. And like then I start like holding, like trying to figure out like how should I hold my tongue naturally? And yeah, once you start thinking that, like you're screwed. Like it's just not the way it works. So yeah, I think that leads us to the end of a chapter here.
Yeah.
So I think and we're about close to time, maybe a tiny bit early. Like we're at like 1:40ish. Like we're usually right around 1:40 to 2 hour mark. So that's about right. So yeah, I don't want to dive into chapter 2 just because that'd be of this book, quote unquote.
Oh, it's a whole
thing it's a whole
chapter,
and it's a completely unrelated thing. Like we're basically going to jump onto the other side of the door, and we're going to jump back into Roland's world.
Let's see with what's going on with Eddie.
Yeah, catch up what's going on that side. So yeah, I don't think it makes sense at this point with this much time passed already to dive into that. So that's where we'll be back next time, which will be 2 episodes from now, or 3 episodes from now technically.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do 2 roundtables, and then our book club, we're going to keep those normal this year. I know that the tail end of last year we kind of, I don't know, pushed them off a little bit. I'm actually surprised it was that long between episodes. I didn't realize that it had been 4 months since our last one. I knew we had skipped one for our Unfound Door episode, but I didn't realize that would have left it to a spot where we had gone so long without one. So yeah, we're definitely gonna
March 28th.
Okay, so end of March will be our next one, which makes sense because we got one. Yeah, because you have one that squeaks in on February. Because I was gonna say that doesn't even sound right. Because 2 episodes that should be a round table, but no, we actually have leap year, which technically will have us recording an episode. One more in February,
on leap
so
year.
the
leap day,
and our episodes are lined up just right to where leap year is going to give us to where one of the shortest month is going to have 3 episodes.
Yep.
So that's fun. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us or find us, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, stream us on Stitcher or Spotify. We're basically on any podcast service. We have our show notes, darktowerpalaver.com. We don't really have anything for this episode, but all for our previous episodes we do, as well as our episodes. If you wanted to like listen to our show through your web browser and not through a podcast service, you can find most of the episodes there at darktowerpalaver.com. And you could just have there's like a web browser or like a thing in the web browser you could press play and you can listen to the episodes. So you could find I don't even know how far back that goes. I don't remember. Did we do the website from day one? I really don't remember.
Do our own site?
Yeah, like with our posts. I don't remember when we established it in terms of the actual website.
You had to go through all those changes, so I don't know if that like reset it or anything like that. So
yeah, it looks like archive goes back to October 2015.
Start.
That is actually the start.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. That is okay. I don't know why. Yeah, I guess 2015. That is right.
5 years this year.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So that go to the show notes and you can find basically every episode. They all should still play. If you're listening like on YouTube or whatever, our YouTube's episodes go back to into the 60s for roundtables, and we're currently high 80s. So maybe it's lower than that. Maybe it's lower than 60s that it goes. But either way, YouTube has a number of episodes. But if you want to get all the episodes and you're not like a podcast person, you can find that on the website at darktowerpalaver.com, as well as the questions. So where if you want to fill out an email and send it to us, there's some questions. You can answer all of them, or you can answer ones you choose to, and you find that on there as well. And then if you want to contact us, Peter can tell you about that.
Just FYI, next roundtable will be number 86 is what it says.
Yeah, okay, so we're mid 80s then. I thought we were higher 80s.
But if you want to contact us, you can email us. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. And then our social media is Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And the Twitter, it's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. Instagram is Dark Tower Palaver. And then, like Ted already mentioned, YouTube. It's youtube.com/Dark Tower Palaver. Make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications whenever we go live.
Yeah, indeed. And we will be back with a roundtable next time. Hopefully have some fun stuff to talk about. And
there's things to talk about. I'm doing a reread of The Dark Tower. There are things to talk about.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, I'm in the middle of Went Through the Keyhole right now, but that is reading versus listening. So depending on how that, I don't know if that, I think that probably I don't know anymore. Normally, I'd say that slows me down a little bit, but anymore, I'm keeping a balance between like podcasts and audiobooks. I'm trying to, but there's just times like I'm just like not in the mood for a book at the moment. I'll listen to a podcast and I just bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
So maybe it's about the same in terms of pacing, but yeah, definitely have some fun conversations. So we will sign off as we always do and say long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
And thank you guys in the chat. I think, let's see, Mark looks like signed off. Jack was had to leave the chat, but it was going to continue listening. Alan and Agamorphy, number of people joined us here. So thank you guys. I know book clubs maybe don't have as much conversating as normal, but it's always fun, and we definitely enjoy it. So,
by the way, I found a huge thing that helps us out just here in my book. I just flipped back. Beginning of the chapter where it goes to the medics who rescue Odetta from the subway. August 1959.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the subway.
The subway. But she was 5 when she got bricked, and he's driving a mid-50s car.
So it doesn't line up, certainly. But, yeah that's what I kind of figured. Because, in my head, like I always kind of have like mid or early 60s is kind of what I have in my mind for Odetta.
Yeah.
So, it was like, it's one of those, like when it said mid-50s, I'm just like.
It seriously didn't click until this time.
And I wasn't going to bring it up. I mean, it's not that it's bad that you did bring it up. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I was just like,
I find those kinds of things fascinating.
No, me too, but I wanted to, like, I was going to hold off and then just do the research and then bring it up maybe on the next episode.
Oh,
but no, the fact you brought up is totally fine because, we at least were able to suss out with what we had here. But, I certainly think we're going to have some timeline issues.
There's deeper dive into that because, like, the newspaper article in this section that we covered today said that she was 5 when she got bricked.
Yeah.
So if she was 5 when she got bricked and she got pushed in 1959, that would mean that she would be 9 years old.
And wasn't she like leaving a coffee bar or something?
Yeah,
like,
on her own. Like.
Yeah. So I mean, she was certainly like an adult. I think when she got pushed, like either a very old teenager, like 18, 19, or she whatever. Like in my mind, like the way it's written and stuff, I feel like she's older when that happens.
Well, she gets drawn in 1964, and she's older than Eddie, who's 23.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, but I always remember Eddie's age is 23.
Yeah.
Jake's, Susanna's, I fluctuate.
Yeah.
On remembering.
Jake's 11, I think.
12. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
I want to say he's 11, but I don't remember.
Yeah, but Eddie, I always remember he's 23. He's 23 years old. I don't know why, but she says that she's older than him by a considerable amount. So I'm thinking like upper 30s, early 40s.
And see, I think we talked about that at one point. That's when Chris emailed us. I think she is in her 30s, ish, somewhere in that realm.
So if in 1959 she was pushed and that's when she lost her legs, she had to be in her late 20s to go 5 years to being drawn.
Yeah.
So she may have even be in her 30s when that happened.
Yeah, so there's definitely some issues at the time, but doesn't.
No.
No, that actually the only thing there though is most of this is all coming from one book. So how's the timeline? Because it's not like you can't even say that King like wrote like one part of it in one book, another part of another book, another part of it in another book, and like they don't all jive because that's happened in this series. I think.
Oh yeah.
A number of times with different things. Like not that it's terrible, but like it does happen. But like if it's all in one book, it makes me wonder like just like. Like, is it like The Streets of New York where he's just like tells you up front, like, hey, it's wrong. I don't care. I'm doing it for my story. Like, is he just doing the same thing with like time as well? He's just like, fudge it. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, that'll be a fun conversation for the next episode roundtable. We'll talk about that. So thank you guys for joining us in the live chat. We will be back normal time in a couple weeks for our roundtable, and I will get something scheduled on the YouTube so it'll show like the little countdown and stuff. I didn't have one this time until I turned it on, so we only had a countdown for like 20 minutes or so.
Oh, really?
But I will get one scheduled before I close this window out this evening, so you guys will be able to see that. So thank you guys for joining us, and see you guys in a couple weeks.
Bye, guys.